Do you think you are a decent individual, gentle, kind, and incapable of harming anyone? Perhaps you're even proud of your compassion, your patience, and how much you avoid conflict. But what if I told you that all of this image of kindness, this facade of self-control, might just be an illusion, and worse, a dangerous one? There is a part of you that you avoid looking at, a dark, instinctive, brutal side. It's inside you, even if you pretend it's not. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and it's not just a metaphor. It is real. The more you ignore it, the more control it has over you. Have you ever found yourself exploding over something small, saying something cruel that doesn't align with who you think you are? Have you ever judged someone with disdain, even without knowing why? Have you ever sabotaged your own opportunities, pushed away people who loved you, or made decisions that you later couldn't even explain? Then listen closely. Maybe it wasn't you. It was the part of you that you pretend doesn't exist, the one you've pushed into the dark corners of your mind, the one you hide even from yourself. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is the trap. You think you are the author of your story, but the truth is, you are being guided by forces you don't even understand. Your shadow, repressed and neglected, is taking the reins. When that happens, the outcome can be devastating. This video is not an abstract theory or a sterile philosophical debate. It is a call, a mirror, a direct conversation with you who has felt that something inside you escapes your control, who has felt suffocated by thoughts you dare not confess, who keeps wondering why you repeat the same mistakes, the same reactions, the same destructive patterns. Today, we will expose this shadow. We will look at it with courage, understand how it is born, why it grows, and what happens when you ignore it. More importantly, we will learn how to face it before it's too late. Because listen closely, if you don't confront your shadow, it will find a way to destroy you, and you won't even realize it was there. You will blame the world, people, fate, but the truth is, the enemy has always been within. Are you ready to look into the eyes of your darkest self? To understand what the shadow is and why it has so much power over you? We need to go back to the beginning, not of your adult life, not of your adolescence. We need to go back to childhood because it is there, in the early years, that your shadow begins to be born. Imagine the following. You are a child full of natural impulses. You cry when you are frustrated, scream when you are angry, laugh out loud. You are spontaneous, wild, authentic. But gradually, the adults around you start to prune this behavior. Boys don't cry. Good girls don't scream. Don't speak loudly. Swallow your tears, that's ugly. Behave. And you learn. You learn that certain feelings are unacceptable, that showing anger is wrong, that wanting something with great intensity is selfishness, that thinking differently is being a problem. So what do? You start to hide those parts of yourself. You bury your anger, pretend you're not envious, repress desire, disguise pain with polite smiles. And so, piece by piece, you build a persona, a socially acceptable character, the image of the good boy, the good daughter, the exemplary employee, the loving partner. But while you shape this image, something else is being built in silence, deep within your mind. Something you don't want to see, something you don't want to admit exists. The shadow. For Carl Jung, the shadow is composed of everything you have rejected in yourself. Not just your flaws, but also your potentials that have been suffocated, your legitimate anger, your creative ambition, your sexuality, your courage, your aggression, your raw authenticity. Everything that didn't fit the mold you were forced to wear was thrown into the basement of the psyche, and it stayed there, waiting. But here's the crucial point. The shadow doesn't disappear because you ignore it. Quite the opposite. The more you repress it, the stronger it becomes. And worse, It starts to manifest behind the curtains in your uncontrollable impulses, in your exaggerated reactions, in your judgments, in your relationships, in your inner voice that sabotages you. The shadow is like a hungry beast locked away, and you think it's under control until the rusty door can't hold anymore. Jung understood something that few have the courage to accept. We are not just what we show the world. We are, above all, what we hide from ourselves. The shadow is not just a repository of bad things. It is the most human, real, instinctive part of who you are. Denying it is denying yourself, and that's why it always finds a way to come back. And when it returns, when it finally finds a crack, you don't recognize what you see in the mirror. That's when the behaviors you call mistakes emerge, the words you say and regret, the actions you swear you'll never repeat. But you do because it's not you who is in control. It's the shadow that is guiding your steps, and you keep calling it destiny. But what if this shadow wasn't just a silent threat? What if it could transform into something much worse if it had space, context, and encouragement? Next, we will explore how the shadow can turn into pure cruelty and how this explains why seemingly good people can commit monstrous acts. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Do you believe that there are people who are naturally evil? That some human beings are born inclined to evil, while others are essentially good? This idea is comforting. It creates a separation between you and the monster, between the good citizen and the criminal, between you and the one who crosses all moral lines. But this separation is an illusion, and those who had the courage to destroy it were psychologist Philip Zimbardo, with one of the most controversial experiments in the history of modern psychology, the Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, Zimbardo selected ordinary college students with no criminal backgrounds who were psychologically healthy. They were divided into two groups, guards and prisoners. The idea was to simulate a prison, but what happened inside that basement at Stanford University in just 6 days was terrifying. The guards, kind, intelligent, educated young men, began to psychologically abuse the prisoners. They shouted, humiliated, deprived them of sleep, and imposed physical and moral punishments. The prisoners, in turn, began to emotionally collapse. They cried, begged to be released. The experiment, which was supposed to last 2 weeks, had to be interrupted in less than one. What Zimbardo discovered was this: evil is not a personality trait. Evil is a possibility within all of us. And when the right conditions are established, absolute power, anonymity, absence of consequences, the shadow finds space to manifest without masks. Those young men did not become cruel because they were evil people. They became cruel because their shadow was finally allowed to emerge. The persona crumbled, and what remained was the repressed part, wild, brutal, dehumanizing. This is what Zimbardo called the Lucifer effect, the transformation of the angel into a demon. And this transformation does not happen grandly. It starts with small permissions, a malicious comment, a humiliation disguised as a joke, an abuse of power that you justify with rationalizations. When you do not know your shadow, it finds ways, and these ways can lead you to places you never imagined. Carl Jung and Philip Zimbardo never worked together, but their ideas intersect with chilling precision. Jung spoke of repression that creates internal monsters. Zimbardo showed what happens when the environment allows those monsters to come out of the cage. Together, they reveal a complete portrait of human evil. It is not out there. It is inside, and it just needs a crack to dominate. But perhaps you are wondering, okay, I understand the concept, but how can I know if my shadow is already acting? How can I perceive the signs before it's too late? In the next part, we will clearly identify the most common symptoms of those being dominated by their shadow without realizing it. And perhaps you will recognize yourself more than you would. Like You don't need to commit atrocities to be dominated by your shadow. It rarely reveals itself in an obvious way. The shadow doesn't shout, it whispers, and that's exactly why it is so dangerous. Because it acts in silence, in the subtext, hidden, under justifications. It camouflages itself in behaviors you call my way, my personality, my temperament. But the truth is, if you observe closely, you'll see that it's not you who is in control. Want a simple example? That disproportionate irritation towards someone who thinks differently from you. That automatic disdain for more confident, bolder, freer people. The cruel judgment you unleash in your mind when you see someone standing out or failing. These feelings don't come from nowhere. They are reflections, projections, as Jung explained. What irritates us in others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. In other words, what bothers you most in others is almost always something you have repressed in yourself. Another clear symptom: self-sabotage. Have you ever been close to achieving something great? A relationship? In a project, a significant change, and without realizing it, destroyed everything, delayed what you shouldn't have said, what you didn't need to, created an unnecessary conflict. The shadow acts like this. It doesn't want you to evolve because growing requires internal confrontation. It prefers to keep you in what is familiar, even if it is destructive. It feeds on your stagnation. And what about uncontrollable emotions? Have you ever felt a hatred that makes no sense, a jealousy that seems irrational, an envy you try to disguise with criticism? These extreme emotional states are direct manifestations of the shadow. They are parts of you that have been denied, repressed, and now scream for attention in the worst possible way, taking the wheel of your life without you realizing it. The shadow also reveals itself in the masks you wear when you try too hard to appear good, correct, spiritualized, peaceful. Be careful. Excessive virtue may just be an unconscious defense against the impulses you fear most in yourself. That person who prides themselves on their patience may be hiding immense anger. Those who claim to be too detached may just be fleeing from their own neediness. The shadow is not just what is ugly, it is what is true but has not been accepted. And here's a hard truth. The more you define yourself solely by the light, the more you will be controlled by the darkness because everything you do not integrate possesses you. But now that you are starting to identify these signs, the most troubling question arises. What if this image of a good person you have constructed is actually just a way to keep your shadow locked away? From now on, let's break the greatest illusion of all, that you are essentially good, and let's expose the truth that no one wants to hear. You are not as good as you think, and everything you fear most still lives within you. Do you consider yourself a good person, and maybe you really believe that? After all, you don't hurt anyone on purpose. You strive to be kind. You want to do the right thing. But what if I told you that this kindness is a construct, a social veneer, an armor you created to avoid facing the most brutal parts of yourself? Society taught you that being good means not feeling anger, not wanting too much, not being selfish. But feelings don't disappear because you deny them. They simply go to the basement of your consciousness. And there they transform into something darker, more corrosive, more dangerous. You haven't stopped feeling envy. You've just learned to call it critical opinion. You haven't stopped wanting power. You've just learned to disguise it as the desire to make a difference. Your kindness may just be the domesticated version of your shadow. Carl Jung said that enlightenment doesn't happen by imagining figures of light, but by making the inner darkness conscious. And this is where many fall because they don't want to see their own darkness. They want to maintain the illusion that they are pure, just morally superior. But this pride is, in itself, an expression of the shadow because it hides something fundamental. The fear of not being good enough, the terror of discovering that within you exists cruelty, selfishness, arrogance, contempt. You think you are. kind, but maybe you are just passive-aggressive. You think you are humble, but you can't stand it when someone receives more recognition than you. You say you don't care about status, but you feel diminished when you see someone more successful. This doesn't make you a monster, it makes you human. And that's exactly the point. The more you deny your humanity, the more the shadow takes control. True kindness doesn't come from denying the evil within you. It comes from facing it head-on, recognizing it, and consciously deciding not to act from it. This is psychic maturity. This is integration. The rest is fantasy, emotional childishness, and childishness, when repressed for too long, turns into destruction, internal or external. Do you really want to know who you are? Look at what embarrasses you, at what you judge in others, at the thoughts you try to silence because it is there, exactly there, that the most real part of you lies. But what now? If the shadow is inevitable and already in action, what to do? How to prevent it from continuing to sabotage your life, your relationships, your future? You will discover that the shadow doesn't have to be your enemy because there is a way, a deep, brutal, and liberating work called shadow work. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. The link is in the pinned comment. By now, you have already understood that ignoring your shadow is a sentence of destruction. But here's what almost no one says. Your shadow does not want to destroy you. It wants to be seen. It wants to be heard. It wants to be integrated. And it is precisely by ignoring it, by pretending it doesn't exist, that it ends up possessing you. Carl Jung called this process integration, and it is neither simple nor comfortable. It requires courage. It requires you to dive into the darkest corners of your psyche and accept what you fear most about yourself. Not to surrender to it, but to transform that repressed content into strength, awareness, and freedom. This process has a name: shadow work. And it begins with a brutally honest question. What in me do I not want to admit exists? It is at this point that you need to stop lying to yourself. You need to acknowledge your darkest impulses without judgment, without moralism, without self-pity. Do you feel envy? Acknowledge it. Do you take pleasure in seeing someone who humiliated you fail? Accept it. Have you ever wished to hurt someone with words or actions? Admit it, because what you do not admit dominates you. But what you face, you transform. One of the most powerful tools for this is the shadow journal. Grab paper and pen or a blank file and write without filters, without censorship. Give voice to the thoughts you would never dare to say out loud. Let out everything you hide, even from yourself. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, you will be scared by what you find. But it is this discomfort that liberates you, because the shadow does not want to be buried. It wants to be recognized. Another essential practice is to observe your emotional triggers. Who irritates you? Who do you judge? What throws you off balance? These reactions reveal the parts of you that have not yet been integrated. What you project onto others is, in fact, an unconscious attempt to expel something that exists within you. The shadow reveals itself more in what you condemn in others than in what you confess about yourself. And finally, learn to dialogue with your shadow. Do not fight against it. Do not try to eliminate it. Tell it, I see you, I hear you, you are part of me, but you do not control my life. This simple attitude of embracing without submitting changes everything, because it transforms fear into awareness, anger into power, insecurity into clarity. Shadow work is not a cheap self-help technique. It is an existential journey. It is crossing the fire of your own truth and coming out the other side whole, more authentic, more free, more complete. Because true strength does not come from denying who you are. It comes from mastering what is within you, especially that which scares you. But even with all this, there is one question that still echoes. Is it worth it? Facing the shadow, diving into the abyss, exposing the wounds? All of this leads to a breaking point, a moment when you realize that you either face the pain of transformation or continue to be a slave to the pain of repetition. In the next and final part, we will go to that breaking point, and there you will understand why the only real way out is exactly in what you have been avoiding your whole life. You spent your whole life trying to be someone others would approve of. You wore the mask of the good, the strong, the balanced. You tried to fit into what was expected, hide what was shameful, bury what was ugly. But the more you tried to escape your shadow, the stronger it became. It became more a part of your actions, your fears, your silent decisions. And now, perhaps you are starting to realize that everything you thought was bad luck, sabotage, fate, was just you, driven by parts of yourself that you refuse to see. Do you want to be free? Then look at what you avoid most within yourself, because that is where the portal lies, the key. The shadow is not the end. It is the crossing. It is the fertile ground where true freedom is born, not that superficial. Freedom of doing what you want, but the inner freedom of not being a slave to unconscious impulses, automatic patterns, repetitions you don't even know the origin of. When you integrate your shadow, something changes forever. You stop sabotaging yourself. You stop blaming the world. You stop living in fear of yourself because now you know there is nothing left to hide. You see yourself in full light and darkness, fragility and power. And when you see yourself in full, no one can control you anymore. Not your history, not your pain, not your traumas, not your mask. But be careful. This is not a destination. It is ongoing work. The shadow is alive, and it returns, tests, tries to catch you off guard. That's why the path of awareness never ends. You need to be vigilant, observe, take care of your psyche as one would care for a temple, because if you let your guard down, it will once again take control of your life, and you will once again call it bad luck, failure, fate. So I invite you to make a pact with yourself now, a pact of honesty, of courage, of responsibility. Don't run away from who you are anymore. Start today. Write, observe your triggers, reflect, and most importantly, share in the comments. Tell me, which part of your shadow do you have the hardest time accepting? What emotion, desire, or impulse do you pretend you don't feel but know is there? Let's talk about it, because the more you talk, the more light enters, and the more light, the less control darkness has over you. If this video impacted you, if it made you rethink your relationship with yourself, continue on this journey. Watch the next video. It is important and may be exactly what you need to hear right now. The darkness is not the end. It is the beginning of true awareness. See you there.